Cimarron Company's fixed budget performance report for July follows. So here we have a fixed budget of sales of 8,400 units. Sales were $840,000. Total expenses were $630,000. Income from operations were $210,000. Well, we actually had sales of 10,800 units. Our budget was set for 8,400. We had actual sales of 10,800, and so that made our sales comparison between the budget level and the actual results, that was favorable. Total expenses between the budgeted level and the actual level were also, were unfavorable because they were higher. And income from operations, the budgeted level versus the actual results were favorable. Well, this type of budget is useless. When you compare a level of 8,400 units to 10,800, of course this sales will be higher, and of course these expenses will be higher, and of course you should have a higher income operations. So making comparisons when you have when you're comparing one sales level to another sales level is just a waste of time. So what it's better to do is it's better to put together a flexible budget based on whatever level you actually achieve. So if you actually achieved 10,800 units of sales, your budget should be based on 10,800 units of sales. And that's what we're going to do. We're going to convert this fixed budget right here, into a flexible budget based on what we actually sold. That makes a lot more sense. So here we go. Sales, first thing in the budget. Sales, let's see, we had $840,000 worth of sales, and that was based on 8,400 units originally in the fixed budget. But remember now, we're converting this fixed budget into a flexible budget. So it looks like the selling price is $100 per unit. And if we actually sold 10,800 units, then our budget ought to be $100 selling price times the 10,008 that we actually sold, or our flexible sales ought to be $1,080,000. That's what our flexible budget ought to be. And if you compare that to our actual results of $1,080,000, that means that our variance was 0. So that's what it should be. And therefore, as far as favorable or unfavorable, there's just there's nothing there. So I just put an end. No, not affected, whatever. All right, next, variable expenses. The variable expenses in this problem under the flexible budget, let's see, the $630,000 budgeted amount, which was this right here, the $630,000 budgeted fixed amount you can break that into two pieces. There's a $592,200 variable piece and a $37,800 fixed piece. So this $630,000 total expenses, to make it more useful, to make it more something that you can do something with, you should break it into a variable portion of $592,200, and the fixed portion is $37,800, and these two pieces together do equal the $630,000. So if I know that my variable expenses were $592,200, and that was based on unit sales of 8,400, then I can take 8,400 units divided into the variable portion of those expenses to come up with the variable cost per unit of $70.50. Then I can multiply that times the level that I actually achieved, which was 10,800 units, which gives me a total variable cost of $761,400, and that's a lot more useful. You'll see here in just a second. So my flexible budget, based on sales of 10,800, my flexible budget for variable expenses should be $761,400. I actually had variable expenses of $706,200. That was given to me by the following. It said that My actual results were $756,000 total expenses, and it says that actual, let's see, my cursor just, there we go. Actual expenses included $49,800 worth of fixed expenses. So if 49.8 of this total were fixed, that must mean the rest of it, or the remainder of it, was variable, and that's where I got this 706,200. And let's see, do I show that anywhere? I don't guess I show that anywhere. But again, this 706,200 was if total actual expenses were 756 and the fixed piece of that was 49.8, then what's left, or 706,200, was variable. So now I'm comparing actual variable expenses to budgeted variable expenses at the actual level that we produced, which was 10,800 units. Let's go to contribution margin. Contribution margin was sales minus variable cost, which is budgeted amount 318,600, actual amount 373,800, and my looks like my variance is $55,200, and that's favorable. And I forgot to say up here that if my actual results for variable expenses were 706,200 and my budget called for 761,400, which is this number up here, then it looks like since this number was lower, then that's 55.2 is favorable also. Now let's go on to fixed expenses. Fixed expenses under the flexible budget should be 37.8, which is this 37.8, and fixed expenses are fixed no matter what level we're talking about. So 37.8, even if it was under 8,400 levels, units of sales, 37.8 is going to be 37.8 no matter what level we achieve. So 37.8 is going to be our flexible level also, 37.8. And they told us that actual fixed expenses were 49.8. So we've got actual 49.8 compared to the budgeted amount, which is 37.8 rather. So it looks like our variance is going to be $12,000, and it's going to be unfavorable because it's higher than it should be. And then last but not least, we have income from operations. We budgeted under this flexible budget of 10,800 units. That's what we budgeted in sales, variable expenses, contribution margin, fixed expenses, and the income budget level was supposed to be 280,800. We actually achieved 324 because we had such a savings up here in this variable cost that our net income from operation variance is going to be 43.2, and that's going to be favorable. And I'm hoping that you're going to see that making comparisons of flexible budgets based on the actual level you achieve, which is 10,800 units, comparing that to the actual 10,008 right here, is much, much more useful in making decisions than making a fixed budget amount and no matter what you achieve, comparing it to that. So that's, like I said, that's just a waste of time.